Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the class. Today I'll be taking the first chapter of your English book, Beehive, and the chapter's name is The Fun They Had, and it's written by Isaac Asimov. So, before starting the story, I would like to tell about the background of the story. In this story, there is a comparison made between the new kind of schools and the old schools. Now, old schools refer to the school in which we are studying right now, in which the teachers are life teachers are there as human beings, and they go to schools, the students come there, and they all just sit together and learn their different activities. And new kind of a school is of a time which is in a future. It's very like we are living in 2024, and the time period in which this story has been set up, it's 2157. So it's of a future era when it is supposedly believed that the teachers will be replaced with the mechanical teacher. Schools will not be the same as we are having right now. So there's a contrast between two schools, the old schools and the new schools. And there are two kids named as Margie and Tommy. They talk about the old schools which they have heard from their grandfather, and the old book which they found at their place from a storehouse. They read in that book about the school. In that time, it's the old school, because they belong to an AI age where their teacher is not a human being, rather their teacher is a mechanical teacher who lives in their own house, and at random hours and regular hours the teacher comes and take their lessons. So in this chapter, the kids are wondering about the time when the students used to go to the schools to take the education rather than being at home and being taught by the mechanical teacher. So there are some characters. So I have written the characters. Number 1, we have Margie. Her age is 11 years old. And second is Tommy. He is Margie's neighbor and is elder to Margie, around 13 years. Next we have Margie's mother. Her name is mentioned as Mrs. Jones. Next we have county inspector, and lastly we have a mechanical teacher. So these are the characters which will be dealing in the chapter. So, a few facts we should know about the writer also. As I told you that this is a story written by Isaac Asimov. He is an American writer and professor of biochemistry at Boston University. In his lifetime, he was considered one of the big 3 science fiction writers. There were 3 science fiction writers, and he was counted among those 3. So, one he himself was, second was Robert A. Heinlein, and Arthur C. Clarke. So, these were the 3 big science fiction writers, and he held an important place among these 3 writers. A prolific writer, he wrote or edited more than 500 books. So he is not a very casual writer. He is a very profound and a very famous writer who is supposed to have written more than 500 books. So this is the few fact about your writer who has written the story, The Fun They Had. Now, this story takes us to the world of the future where computers will play a major role. Like the era in which we are living, in this also computer is playing an important role, because most of our work is done by computers only. But in this story, we are talking of a time when even the teachers will be replaced by the mechanical teacher. So basically, everything will be dependent completely on computers rather than on the human beings. Let the children talk freely about how they imagine the schools of the future that their own children might go to. You might want to explain the ideas of virtual reality and virtual classroom. The term virtual reality refers to a reality created by computer software, and a virtual classroom is not a real classroom, but one where learning is through computer software on the internet. So there's a difference between live classroom and the virtual classroom. Like the era in which we are living, we have a live classroom in which the teachers come and teach us, and the students all are assembled together at a one place. The special building in which all the students assemble together is termed as school. But here in the virtual classrooms, there is no specific building. There is an AI teacher who teaches the students individually according to their mental skills. So it's not like the same topic is taught to them, because they are having the teachers at their home. So with their convenience and with their mental skills, the teachers adjust the capability of the teaching skills, and then the AI teacher teaches the students. So it is a time period being talked about when the classes are replaced by the virtual classrooms. The children may know what a robot is and be able to guess what a robotic teacher would be. So after reading this chapter, you may have an idea of how a robot is and how a robotic teacher looks like. So now we'll start with the text. Again, one few facts have been given before the text. The Fun They Had is a radio fiction based on the short story by American writer Isaac Asimov in 1951, set in the year 2157. I told you that the time era when this story has been set up is 2157, and the era in which we are living is 2024. So it's a future time. When children learn individually at home using a mechanical teacher, that is a robotic teacher, the story tells of an 11-year-old Margie Jones whose neighbor Tommy finds a real book in the attic of his house, because they are having only e-books with them. So in the storehouse they found a book that was a real book with cranky pages, and the letters were all printed. It was not on the screen, rather it was a book which they can feel with their hands. This makes Maggie reminded of the words that her grandfather used to tell about the earlier school days. So after she sees that book which they have got from the attic, she remembers her grandfather's words that he used to tell her that in his time how the school used to be. So now she is wondering exactly what his grandfather told him once. It tells about a time when children used to learn in a group of the same age of students in large schools that were not merely designated rooms in private houses as the year in 2157. As I told you, the schools were quite different in earlier time which we are living in. We have a special building where the students come and take their education. But the story in which the Margie and Tommy are living, this is 2157. There is no designated or a specified building where the students have to go. Rather, they are comfortably at their places with the AI teacher with them. Margie and Tommy discuss what it must have been like to study together with a real person as a teacher, and though at first Margie is skeptical about the notion, she is very doubtful how a living human can teach the students. She is quite doubtful, but after later on, when she discovers the facts about the old school, she finds it more interesting, and she wonders how the schools had been and how the students must be enjoying sitting together and taking the education together, which they are not able to get it in their era, that is 2157. Margie is skeptical about the notion. By the end of the story, she daydreams while sitting on the chair before the mechanical teacher about what it must have been like for the fun they had. So, later on in the story, when her teacher is teaching her, she is comfortably sitting on the chair, but her mind is engrossed in the thoughts of wondering how fun the students must be having in the time when they were going to the real school and not the virtual school. So there is a contrast between the old school and the new school. So after this we'll be reading the text and I'll be explaining you line by line.